For centuries, millions of people from across the globe have come to the United States seeking the opportunity for a better life. America is a country that was built by immigrants, some who brought their talent and others who found themselves while pursuing their dreams in a new land. Here is one story about the life of a modern-day immigrant.
Hello, my name is Vlad Kamenko, and this is my immigrant story. In the United States, every conversation starts with the question, where are you from? And I always say, I am from Riga, Latvia. This is very close to the truth, even though I was not born there. My parents came to Riga when I was 2 years old, maybe a little bit more than two and a half or something like that. And I grew up in a private house. It was a big house, but without amenities by today's standards. One very important feature that had an influence on my life was the fact that the house had a huge vegetable and fruit garden. I figured out maybe 6.5 acres altogether, something like that. And by the way, I did work, as a kid, I worked planting and harvesting in the garden, and it was all organic, even though nobody used that word at the time. From what I remember from early childhood and what my mother told me, I always liked to be outdoors, to spend time not inside the house, outside, except from, let's say, from late September till early May. It was super cold, rainy, wet, miserable. That's life in Latvia. I didn't like it, by the way. Our next door neighbors, had a crude, homemade ping pong table. And when I was, I would say, 7, 8 years old, I started going to those neighbors and playing with older kids. I liked it, and it was an exercise also. On the other side of our garden, over the fence, was a junior high school, and it was a boarding school. They had their own soccer field, so when you climb over the fence, which I did often, I played football with the other kids there, played games, or just hit balls for practice. It was good. And those are the early days of my childhood. The other important thing is to say my parents. My father was a very skillful tailor. And he also worked at home, which was not legal by Soviet laws. There were issues with that, but he was a very good bread maker. And my mother was keeping the house and taking care of me and 2 older sisters of mine, but they were older, quite a bit older. So when my father had customers who came, and they would wait for him, sometimes more than one, until he does different work. And they would bring chess sets and play chess at home. And I would be watching and looking, and I was interested. So I started learning the game at home, and I was asking my mother, just checking different things. And then my mother started taking me to what is called in Russia the Palace of Pioneers. They had chess masters that would teach kids and young adults how to play, and play, not just move pieces, but learn the basics. And my mother would take me for a couple of years. It was a trip, into the city, and God bless her. Not only for that, for other things also, but the truth is that playing chess as a kid, and I continued on and off, but as a kid, that had an influence on my thinking process for the rest of my life, because it's such an interesting game for the brains. And I have to say, it was a popular game in Russia in those days. So then, by the time I was maybe 9 or 10, I thought I was pretty good at ping pong. So ping pong is for amateurs and table tennis is for those who play professionally, so to speak. And then when I was 10, I started going to a local sports club, and there were professional instructors. And I switched to table tennis full time, and I was pretty good at that. And maybe in a couple of years, I started winning big tournaments in the city. Riga is the capital of Latvia, was 1 million people living there or something like that. So it wasn't a village. And by the age 13 or something like that, I was a member of a junior team, Latvia, and started traveling in the Baltic states all over and in European part of Russia. It was interesting, fun, and professional sport on that level for the game of table tennis. It wasn't super strenuous physically, but it still was sport that required an effort, and I really liked it. In school, I have to say, I was a pretty good student as far as what I liked, the subjects that I liked, which was history and geography of the world. And that's how life was moving along until 1966, I would say. My father and his brother, who lived in the United States, but they didn't know about that since they lost connection at the end of World War II. They found each other through Red Cross, and my parents began traveling to Poland for family reunions, and pretty much right away for special treatments, for medical treatments for my mother, because she had a very weak heart. And they would go not for a couple of weeks or this or that, but for months and months at a time. And the first time was 6 months. What was interesting about that, my older sisters were out of the house, was left to me, and I was the king of the house, which is very unusual for Soviet Union, for a young guy, for a teenager, to have his own place. And it was left, and what was the result of that is that my friends, we started having parties, drinking some, girlfriends, and all of that was fun and games. I guess teenage years turned like that because of circumstances. So very soon I started getting stuff from when my parents would come back, or even from Poland, they would send packages, and from the United States, from my uncle, things that were not available in the Soviet Union, and I was able to resell them, make extra money, which turned out to have more parties and more fun. In addition to that, I got involved in what was called black market, meaning going to the port of Riga, which was a big port in the country, and meeting foreign sailors, buying some stuff from them, and then reselling it against income, serious income. Dangerous too, but nothing like, you cannot just, the money don't fall from the trees or from the sky anywhere. So that's how it was going on. Pretty much even when a few years later I met a lady. We fell in love, how they call it, and got married, and I had a child in 1971. My daughter was born. Her name is Gabriela. By a year or two later, something like that, what happened, certain minority groups in the Soviet Union were allowed to emigrate. And actually, my parents already left in 1972. In the end of 72, they were on the way to the United States. More precisely, they were going to Miami Beach because my uncle retired to Miami Beach. And luckily, that happened because I really, later on, when I came to Miami Beach, I'm jumping ahead, I loved it because it was so different from Riga in many ways. Not only because it's a different country, but Miami Beach is something very different from the rest of the United States. So I was really ready to leave. And I started making preparations, but I had a family. So what happened that my wife at the time, she was not interested to leave her mother country and her extended family and all that. So we got divorced. And by the end of 73, I had a visa and I was ready to go. And I left in the early days of January. I was on a train leaving Soviet Union, first going to Austria, and from Austria to Rome, Italy, where I spent 2.5 months for processing and documents and all of that. Fun, it was interesting, but with no money and no language, it was difficult to communicate, and that's kind of complicated. It was in transit, one can say. So I was 25 years old. I thought that's a good chunk of my life, and that's enough. That's why I always say my life, at least my second life, started when the plane from Rome arrived in Miami. My parents met me at the airport. We got in a taxi and we were riding to Miami Beach. And interesting, I made 2 observations from that travel from the airport to Miami Beach. That those 2 things stick in my mind forever. One was in Rome when I got on the plane. I was wearing a wool suit, wool sweater, very warm shirt, undershirt. By the time the taxi came from the airport to arriving to Miami Beach, I was sitting only with a T-shirt because in early April, it's, 80 degrees or whatever it is Fahrenheit. It's hot. It's warm. No wool clothes is allowed. So that's one thing. And the other, we took MacArthur Causeway. I learned that name later. And we are going along, and in the middle of the causeway, you see a big sign, and it said, "Welcome to Miami Beach, year-round vacation land." I understood that, I spoke enough English. I thought, oh, that must be true. How nice, year-round vacation land. And I remember that, and I tried to get a minute or an hour or a day, as often as possible, to stick to that principle of year-round vacation land here. But, it's not so simple. You need to start living different life. And very early on, I realized that without a really superb or its relative, but without serious English knowledge of English language, you're not going to get very far. So I started taking some classes here and there, and I started working low-level jobs, making some money, got a first car, learned how to drive, moving around town, and maybe in a year and a half I knew enough. So I started my job, got in, looking for what to do. I got into driving a taxi. But in the same time I thought that was not enough English for me, and I managed to get into an intensive English program at the University of Miami. I had a car, I could drive. This was maybe 6-7 months after I came here. And I went 5 days a week, 5 hours a day for that program. Maybe 4.5 months I spent. That was excellent program. It was designed for those foreigners who were interested to attend American universities afterwards. Even though it wasn't easy with time and everything, but it was an excellent program. And I was driving a taxi at night and going to school. At one time, I stopped driving a cab, and I got to work at one brand new luxury condo, a new one, high-rise in Miami. I was working in a health club there as a spa attendant. I don't know what moved me to do that, but it was good. There were very fancy patrons that came there from the building, and I learned how to communicate with that kind of a crowd. And from there on, I thought, wait a second, let me see if I can learn some kind of a skill that would help me to really get a professional job. And what I did, I went that was a year and a half, I think, after I came to the country. I went to school, trade school, and I was studying massage to become a massage therapist. It was a year-long program. It was interesting, and because I was a professional athlete in Latvia and was offered specific treatment therapies preparation for big tournaments, and it was only for elite athletes, I remember some of the things that were provided, and quality and everything was pretty good. So I was able to incorporate that with what I learned at the massage school. And when I graduated, I started working here and there in different clubs on my own. That was interesting. And it seemed like I was pretty good from the responses of those with whom I worked, that I have special skills in the field. And then one day, a friend of mine from massage school called me because he had so much work he couldn't manage alone. He called me if I can help him. And that was the place he was working was called Doral Country Club. It was a unique luxury boutique hotel for people around the world who loved golf. They came especially like in the winter season, what is called here winter season. It's from October till April. And they would stay for several weeks and play golf there. And they had a spa. It was run down, but functional. And I came, and sometimes the guy would, a friend of mine, he would take off, and I would be there working by myself. And luckily one day, the owner of the hotel, that was a very rich family from New York. They had few hotels here, in Miami Beach. He came to the spa to get a massage, and I didn't know who he was. So I do my normal, regular thing, taking care of the place, of the people there, when you're alone and it's a spa. And maybe the quality was also something special. So next day, I get a call from the general manager of the hotel, called me and says, look, we want to offer you to take over this business. You will be in charge. I guess the owner really liked what I do and how I do it. So, of course, I said yes. I was looking for more work. But I said, the place doesn't look well. They said, no, don't worry about it. We are going to fix it, so it's nice. What they did, they closed it for a few weeks. They fixed it up, and I was the boss now, and it was my own business. So look, that was, 6 years after I came here. I went through different things as far as work and this and that, but here is my own business. I hired people in the winter. I worked my ass off in a season, 7 days a week, long hours, but it was great. I was making very good money, met very interesting people from around the world who came to play golf. I took off for a couple of months in the summer. There was nothing to do. I used the steam room almost every day. That became a part of my life. I played tennis there. They had great facilities. Swam in a pool. They had a very big pool. Normally not only allowed for the guests. They provided me with a lot of perks. And I did the very best I could. And I guess guests loved it and management loved it. And I loved it. What can be better? In the same time, sometime in 1979, I thought, I felt like, let me get some more education. And I started taking full-time courses at Miami-Dade College, which I finished in 2 years, which was full-time, and working at the Doral Country Club during the day, or whatever. Here in the States, you take courses whenever you have time. And still, I was living alone, kind of, going out. I enjoy jazz, healthy eating, but because from 1977, because of my background, I think, and what I learned about the human body, I became very strict vegetarian, eating seafood as well, but no junk, no butter, no sugar, of course. It was an important change in my life because that helped me not right away, but very soon to feel great, to feel that I am okay today and I will be okay tomorrow. And 47 years later, I continue with the same lifestyle, and I keep my fingers crossed and only thank myself for that. Then I have to say that sometime in the early 1980s, I was already going to Miami-Dade College. I was about to start that business at the Doral, but my mother got sick with her bad heart, and in September of 1980 she passed away, but she knew I was no longer driving a taxi. She was very happy about that I was going to school and that I was getting into business. And of course it was a difficult experience because I was living with her. My parents were divorced here after 40-some years of living together. It happens. Life goes on. I have to say that many times. And then sometime in 1985, I thought, let me see if I could organize it, and I did. I got a tourist visa, and I went back to Russia to see my family, to spend time to reconnect with my daughter. By the way, from the time that I left, all alone, I financially provided some help for her. But when I came to USSR, because of the rules and everything, and the feeling was so different because I was not a former Russian citizen in my head. I was an American all the way, and it was strange for me to have that feeling coming back there. And no, it was like almost 3 weeks, but the experience of seeing my family still very Russian and everything, how the things are there, it rubbed me the wrong way, I have to say. Anyway, about the same time, 1985 or something like that, my father, who was the only living relative here, really, because I didn't get along with my uncle. My father got cancer, and I was the only one to take care of him. He was diagnosed in 85. But prior to that, when I graduated from Miami-Dade, I thought that's not enough. So I went to University of Miami to study political science and world history because I liked those subjects. And I thought one day when I graduate, I would go to law school and get involved in international law. But that would require me to move out of Miami Beach because there were no really top law schools. I graduated magna cum laude, was almost with the highest honors. So I thought I would get in any of those because I spoke Russian still and English and graduated well. But I really liked Miami Beach, so I was not super anxious. But anyway, with my father getting sick, and he passed away a couple of years later, but when I was taking care of him, there was no way that I would leave Miami Beach. So law school had to be put in, not even in the back burner, but put out of my mind. So that's how life was going on. It was some fun and games, some short-term, long-term girlfriends, but, I was living here by myself and pretty much enjoying healthy life. I was, very much into playing tennis and swimming and eating healthy. And Miami Beach in the summer is very difficult, but, it's all air conditioned and the cars and everything, but so-called winter, there's never snow, there's never really cold. You don't need a fur coat or anything like that. It's an interesting life. But sometime, I think 1990, I met a Puerto Rican woman. She was born in Ohio. And we got along and soon started living together. Not easy. Puerto Ricans are tough. We're Puerto Rican women, I mean. But look, the life goes on and we're still together after 25 years. Also, sometime in early 1990s, the Soviet Union fell apart. No more communism, no more nothing of that. All those countries became independent. And my daughter was how old was she? Something 94, so she was like 23, something like that. I was able to get her a green card, and she came here to live with me and start her life in the U.S. because she didn't have anything other than her family. She didn't have any future in Riga. She came and we were living together. She got a job in a restaurant, learned some special skills, like an assistant chef. Was not bad with that at all, and she learned some English. But she, other than working, all she wanted to do is drink and drink more and party. And that was not okay with me. It was difficult in that sense between us. And truly, after a year and a half, she had to pack her bags and move back to not USSR anymore, but move back to Latvia. And she had a tough time there, and she didn't come back for 10 years, which meant that she lost her green card. It was very sad, but our relationship was sour and non-existent for a long time. Then I have to say that what was I doing? The new owners of the Doral, young members of the family, they decided that they want to build a huge, very luxurious hotel with its own spa, and they would operate it and make all the money. Not what I was doing before, that it was my own business, and it was great, and financially great too. I made quite a bit of money. I was able to live well and even put quite a bit of money away. But when they built their own, I said, no, I don't want to work for anybody. I started, though, because of my skills, I started working for like 10 years or more. I started working for different medical doctors, including orthopedics, doing physical therapy. I was not licensed, but I had the knowledge, and under their umbrella, I could do that. And not only in their offices, but I worked with their patients at homes, which meant cash, good money again, and some satisfaction of helping people to get well. And I did that for like 10 years or so. By 2010, that also became very difficult because the doctors, not only the whole doctors where I worked, but other doctors realized that they could make more good money from Medicare and stuff like that, charging for physical therapy, everything, and using, of course, they had to also use licensed people, and I wasn't. But I think that it was more driven by desire to make money, all that money on their own. And so that was also coming to an end. I started investing some money in fixing old properties, buying them, fixing them, and renting a little bit like that. And that was it. In 2015, I officially became a retired citizen of Miami Beach. I mean, I'm joking, but retired. I retired. So couple years earlier, I guess because of my background, it just happened. I created a very healthy drink based on ginger and a few other very healthy ingredients, but ginger is the king. And what happened is that through whatever, by accident, I met a guy who was very knowledgeable in the business of beverages. And he helped me. We created a company and started production of my drink called Gingerona in early February of 2014. And I became a salesman, the marketing agent, the rep, the delivery guy, everything that needed to be done because small company. And the guy didn't want to spend really any money. That became a problem later. So I did everything. I was traveling around Florida, and not only Florida, big stores, doing demos. I enjoyed it. There is no money. When you get into the business like that, there is no money for a number of years in the beginning. But I drove around. I met a lot of people in those health stores, and those people were looking for something, what would help them in their quest for healthy life. And I enjoyed teaching them, explaining to them that it's not only what you eat, but what you drink. Even though I also drink wine and beer, but only with dinners for many years, but no junk. And I was happy to explain to them why Gingerona is number one in their well-being, and if they take that. And it was good. I saw people of different ages buying and then buying again, and we were selling on Amazon. The drink was cool. So the only thing is that there was no money, and that partner of mine was too difficult to work with. I got another person involved, and the only thing is that by somewhere 2019, we ran into some production problems, changed places where we made the drink, and then COVID-19 pandemic came, and we were out of business, and still are out of business, I have to say. But now, recently, I am looking for all organic ingredients for glass bottles, and thinking we can restart making different things, but the same based on gingerona, which I still don't see anything equal on the American market, equal in any health food stores, equal to that. So let's see what happens with this. I recently, because of my perseverance, maybe luck, I don't know why, how it happened, I was able to get an approval for my daughter's immigration visa, and now she's waiting for visa at the U.S. Embassy for a green card. Maybe she will be able to come whenever she wants to again, which is unheard of, to get a second time this green card. Come, and now she has a very good business there where she lives, but, we'll see. When she starts coming, I'm hoping for that. And she's hoping for that without the trouble to be able to come to the United States for as long as she wants. We'll see. And that's how my life is proceeding. Now I spend more time trying to find rundown properties, buy them and fix them, and sell them. No more hassles with tenants and all of that. I'm getting too old for that. But look, life is, after all, I have to say, taking plus and minuses, life is good, and especially life here in Miami Beach. And I want to thank you and wish for all of you good luck, and God bless the United States. Thank you.